All right, welcome back to another Western State Coaches Show. This week I'm joined by head women's basketball coach Van Girard. Van, thanks for being here today.
Not a problem. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about my basketball program a little bit.
Well, you started off the season with a couple tough exhibition games against Division I opponents. Once you started playing Division II, it seems like you guys are starting to roll now. 3-2 overall record, and picked up an RMAC win last weekend. Talk a little bit about your schedule so far and how you guys are playing.
Well, you know, the D1 schools in the beginning of the year, those are always a challenge for us, and we kind of do it for two reasons. One, obviously the guarantees help a lot budgetarily wise, but also I feel that we play up. And even though we're going against opponents that are bigger, stronger, faster, it seemed like every year after we play that week of exhibitions, we're seeing the game a little bit better. I thought that first opening tournament up in Mesa, I thought the kids played mostly really well. The first game we did a nice job of coming back. Second game we jumped out early and then had to hold on and kind of do right things at the end of the ball game, but experiences are really important. Turned around and opened up with Pueblo, and I mean they kind of put a licking on us on the offensive glass. Spent some time working on that, saw some progress in the Highlands game. Felt at Western New Mexico that was a game that was winnable for us, that we just didn't do a couple good things at the end. But that's kind of who we are a little bit. We're still in that growth mode. We got dinged pretty good early with injuries that have really prevented us from, I'm not going to say steamrolling because I don't think that the composition of the team lends itself to that, but really interfere with the progress in terms of their learning and habit development and stuff like that.
Well, it really seems like your sophomore guard, Taylor Long, has started developing, and she's kind of taken over a lot of the scoring duties early in the season. She's averaging 16.8 points per game and second in the RMAC. Talk a little bit about her progression from last year to this year and how she's playing.
She's playing with a tremendous amount of confidence right now, and I think that's the biggest thing from last year to this year. I think the other part of it is she's had to take on a much larger role for us. We knew coming in that she was going to be our go-to player. Not only were we asking her to be the go-to player, we're asking her to bring the ball up, distribute the ball, and then terminate the clock. So there's a lot on her plate, but it seems like the more I give her, the more she steps up to that. But I think the biggest difference between last year as a freshman and this year as a sophomore is her confidence level for sure. And then the second part, she had a year of experience in college. And that makes a big difference. You have freshmen that come in and are sometimes freshmen, and they have what I would refer to as freshman year, where they look really good one game and like, okay, what's going on in the next game? And I think what we're seeing is just a maturation of Taylor. I think also we're seeing a player that's determined to try and get the program where we want the program to be, and she's taken on, again, a tremendous amount of roles. I worry a lot about her because we act so much of her, and I got to squeeze rest minutes whenever I can with her, but again, she stepped up to the challenge so far.
Well, she's, doing great at the offensive end, but as a team, your defense has really picked it up as well. Second in the RMAC in field goal percentage defense. You're holding teams to 31% from the field. Talk a little bit about your team as a defense and what your strategy is.
Well, I've always been a grinded-out guy. I just feel that the two constants in the game are defending and rebounding. I think the difference is I finally have a team that's buying that. It's funny, my players tell me all the time, well, Coach, I'm seeing you smile more than I've ever seen you. Some of the returnees that's been with me for 3 years. And it's that way because I know I come to work, I know they're going to hear what I'm saying, I know they're going to try and apply, and I know I'm going to see progress. In each of the games we've played, I've seen a little bit more good basketball. We still have our bad basketball moments, but I've seen a little bit more good basketball. And again, they're really trying to apply what we teach from a system standpoint. I think the second part of that is I've got three players, Harley and Sadie and Sid, that have been in the program for 3 years now. And so some of that repetition begins to develop and show itself up a little bit more. And I have to say the two players that I'm probably most pleased with in terms of that returning class is Sadie and Harley. Harley has stepped up and has given us the verbal leadership. She's capable of knocking down 20, which she showed, and Sadie's capable of knocking down 20. What we've got to do is get them to be a little bit more consistent on that end. But I think more than anything else is just the buy-in factor that they're demonstrating.
Well, for those of you that haven't seen women's basketball this year, there's a few rule changes, a few major rule changes that have really changed up the game with quarters instead of halves and some timeout rules and moving the ball up on timeouts. How do you feel about the rules so far, and How is it affecting the season, do you think?
One, I thought the 4 quarters would prolong the game, but it seems like our games are about the same amount of time. So I'm less opposed to that than I was at the beginning. Again, I felt like, man, the rules committee is really, and that's one of the reasons I worked hard to get on the rules committee. I kind of felt like they made some major changes all at once, as opposed to what it's always been, a little bit at a time. So that one I'm okay with. The one I dislike the most is the timeouts, because I need as many timeouts as I could possibly get sometimes to kind of make things, or try and make things right on the floor with the team. But that's probably the one that I dislike the most, that I think has had a negative impact, because it's also impacted how the table has been run. I know on the 2 games, the Mesa tournament as well as the New Mexico tournament, I mean, there were some real issues going on at the scorers table. We haven't had it. We didn't have it at the Pueblo game. But there's still a lot of people figuring that out, not just people at the table, but officials. I know in western New Mexico that the official 3 times said something to the table that was incorrect. And the scorer looked at me, and I just put my hands up. I'm not saying anything wrong in this situation, But those are probably the 2 things that to me are most drastic. I like the idea of advancing the ball in a timeout situation. I don't always take advantage of it, but I like the option of that opportunity. But the timeout factor, I mean, again, we lost quite a lot of timeouts that I can always use. Yeah.
Well, a big couple games this weekend, playing against rivals Adams State and Fort Lewis College here at home. Games start at 5:30 on Friday against Adams and 5 o'clock on Saturday. Talk a little bit about your opponents coming up this weekend.
We know that Adams State is going to do a lot of surprise and change. So in preparation for them, we spent a lot of time on our full court press offense, our half court zone offense versus a trapping 2-3 zone, as well as offense versus a run and jump. And I think if we handle those elements well, we'll be fine. Fort Lewis kind of does a little bit of the same thing. They're not as much of a change and surprise team. What Fort Lewis brings to the table that's different from what we've seen most of the year is just a great push. I mean, they get the ball up and down the floor. They're trying to run it down your throat every time, miss or made situation. So, again, in that situation, a lot of our prep was in transition defense, ID and people. Again, basic components of our system, just trying to get our kids to be a lot more alert to those. I think the biggest key with Fort Lewis is, along with taking away their transition game, is not allowing their shooters to get open looks, because they can make open shots. And so got to get that hand up. And, again, for me, the constant is defense. If we do our job on a consistent basis and applying what we do defensively, I think we'll be fine. I'm excited. I'm excited to see how much progress has been made, because every week we get a little bit better. And so I'm excited, looking forward to these 2 ball games. Plus, it's been a while since we played at home. So that'll be nice, too,
All right. Well, thank you, Van, again. Thanks for being here. And for your Western State Coaches Show, I'm Garrett Fink. For more information on Western Athletics and the Mountaineer women's basketball program, visit GoMountaineers.com.